100 years ago today, after decades of campaigning, some women were finally given the right to vote. Yes, they had to be 30 or over and of property, but the Representation of the People Act paved the way for universal suffrage 10 years later. So where are we 100 years on? Where are we with the people we actually vote for? Well, last year's general election saw the highest proportion of female candidates, but only 32% of MPs are female. And as recently as 2015, there were more male MPs in the House of Commons at that time than the number of female MPs ever elected. We can speak to Carolyn Harris, who's the Labour MP for Swansea East and a Shadow Minister for Women and Equalities in the Commons. Good morning.
Good morning.
And Baroness Gale, who's Shadow Minister for Women and Equalities in the Lords. Good morning to you as well.
Good morning.
Baroness Gale, I'll start with you if I can. What was it like then when you entered Parliament compared to now?
Well, I went into Parliament in 1999 and I was in the House of Lords, of course not in the Commons, but in 1997 saw the biggest number of women ever elected, 101 Labour women, I think it was 120 in total. And the reason Labour had such a high number of women for the first time ever was because we used all-woman shortlists and put women in good seats they could win. So that everybody acknowledges that made a huge difference to the House of Commons at that time.
Were you something of a culture shock to people who'd been around a long time then at that point?
I think for the men in the House of Commons to have so many women there probably was. I'm not sure how they coped with it really. It was something new for them, and obviously something very new for women and for the women MPs who were there before this big influx.
Did you feel welcome?
Well, I wasn't in the Commons, you see.
Sure.
I was in the House of Lords, and it's a different culture in the House of Lords. So I never received anything but a good welcome from all sides of the House.
Let's talk about the Commons then. Carolyn Harris, you've only been there a couple of years, or 3 years it'll be this year in the House of Commons. You also got a wealth of experience to draw on from your time before you were an MP as well. Is it easier being a woman in Parliament than being a woman outside of Parliament and going about your work?
Oh, that's a difficult one. I don't find working in the House of Commons difficult at all, but then... and I would imagine that most of my female colleagues a completely different mindset now than they would have had back in 1999. You know, for example, there are a lot of single mums in Parliament now, and they share responsibility for their childcare with their former partners and with families. So I think it's a different environment. I think we've caught up, if you like, with modern society. We've actually getting to a better place.
And you think it's that way round, do you, that Parliament's following modern society rather than Parliament setting the trend that the rest of the country follows?
Yeah, I think we've been late coming to the party, but we get in there slowly.
Does that worry you?
Well, I mean, you're talking about many hundreds of years of history. You know, we've had to break through not just a glass ceiling, we've had to break through culture and hundreds of years of culture. And it was quite something to get that many women in 1997. So from 1997 till now, I think we've come on leaps and bounds.
And that's
There's
where
still
the big
a long
rise
way
has
to
been,
go.
OK, I wanted to ask you both, actually. Baroness Gale, you first. 32% of MPs female, 100 years on. Is that a good return or a bad return?
Oh, it's not a good return at all. No, it took 100 years to get to this stage.
Should it be higher then, do you think, already by this point?
Well, we'd be aiming for 50. I think that's fair enough. And that's the Labour Party policy is to have 50% of our candidates as women by the next general election. And because of all-woman shortlist, we know we can put women into seats they can win. And it's proved to work. You know, I was in a debate yesterday in the House of Lords on this very topic, and all sides, not just Labour, were saying how good it was that Labour had used all-woman shortlist and seen the effects of it. That's the important thing, that you have results. So 50-50 is our aim.
Yeah, look, I'm not going to get into that. You've mentioned the all-women shortlist twice, and people might be thinking, well, why don't we go down? I'm not going to go down that road, because I think we've done that argument umpteen times, and you both...
That's been done and dusted.
Exactly. We can, you know, we'll be going over the same arguments we've gone over for months and years. And what do you think, Carolyn Harris? 32%. I can't make my mind up whether I think that's good or bad. So someone who's there, is that enough? Would you have expected more a century on?
Listen, as a woman who's come from a normal, ordinary working class background, I went through my life in what they call the imposter syndrome. I kept waiting for somebody to say to me, tap me on the shoulder and say, you shouldn't be here, you're not good enough to be here. And I think a lot of women like me who have got the ability, but we've come from a time when maybe we weren't encouraged to really come to the fore and to push ourselves, and getting married and having children was the aim. I done all that, but then I came to a time when I suddenly got the confidence from somewhere. Now for me, it took losing my son to push me forward into doing something slightly more out of the box then, and I went to university. I think it was either do that or just go downhill.
At the moment,
and I
you still feel like
path.
an imposter?
God, yes, every day. Every
Really?
day I'm waiting for someone to say to me, what are you doing here? Are you sure you got this right? Every day.
And is that a female thing, or is that a
I think it probably
product of where
is.
you're from?
No, well, it could be a bit of both actually, but I think it's a woman thing, and of course we are susceptible to more accusations of intimidation, and people would never say to a man some of the things they say to me. With me, people will lie about you, but on social media, people will criticise my dress sense or criticise my size and say, because I'm a big girl, but they wouldn't do that to a man. But so they think that by doing that, they think it makes them clever. I think it makes them look foolish, but there we are. So I think women are more susceptible to that kind of attitude, and it puts people off.
There's so many questions I could ask. I've got a huge list here. I'm just going to pick the one that I really wanted to get to. You've both been there varying amounts of time now, varying amounts of influence that you're having on how the country moves forward. Baroness Gale, the biggest challenge facing women today, what would you say that was?
Well, today, I think the biggest challenge facing women, I think is misogyny. We're trying to deal with a culture that's very difficult to change. I think there's still a lot of barriers for women, and we need to break them down. I do think there's hope, though. I don't want to be despondent about everything. I think women have moved on. But every time a woman moves on, you can see there's another little barrier put up to stop them. And what's gone on this last few months is enough to put any woman off, I think. I hope it won't put them off. But those issues now are, I know they're being dealt with in Parliament, on how you can stop all this sexual abuse, for example, and the high level of harassment on social media. That's a big worry.
Yeah, which Theresa May's been speaking about as well.
Yes,
actually,
and that's good. Yeah, that's really good.
Just want to bring Carolyn Harrison on the same point as well. Carolyn, the biggest challenge you think women are facing?
Oh, I think for me it would be to find that inner courage and to actually stand up and be counted and say, especially when you're young and you've got your life ahead of you, don't be afraid to take that plunge, because we are ready to welcome you. People like Anita have laid the path. People like me are building on that path. By the time the next generation get you, we'll be building mountains.
See, it's interesting because your theme has been, it's actually partly in women's own hands. That yes, that stuff needs to change, but there's an empowerment
for me, it's been about, and a lot of women my age. I use the analogy of the 1950s women. That they were silent. They were born in the 50s. They've had their pension taken off them. They were just silent voters. They voted or they didn't vote. All of a sudden, something that happened, a few years ago has affected their lifestyle, and they've become militant. And that's what we're seeing more of, is women taking control of the situation, putting forward their argument and taking on the fight. And, that is where we're getting better, and all power to us, I say.
Well, look, absolutely great to speak to you on a pretty momentous anniversary today. That's Carolyn Harris, who's Shadow Minister for Women and Equalities in the Commons, Baroness Gale, who does the same job in the Lords. It's 16 minutes past 7.